Right, well, welcome very much to this talk I'm going to do today about the artist Jamie Reid. He's extremely well known for the work he did with the Sex Pistols in the mid to late 70s, the cut and paste, ransom note, torn image style. But there's a much broader story which really starts around the family kitchen table. In the Reid family is somebody who's very much associated with Druidry, George Watson MacGregor Reid, who, as I'm sure you know, was a very important founder in Druidry as it's known today, I think. And but Uncle George, as he was known, loomed large over the family in many ways. And but he had a pretty fearsome reputation. And but Jamie's related to George through his father, but his mother also has a very interesting family history, and she brought in a very strong belief in fairies into the family. And so they had a very interesting soup, as it were, an interesting soup of ideas in the family, which which combined socialism and spiritualism, or spirituality. And this combination of work continues. This combination of ideas continues in Jamie's work to this day. I like to refer to the two areas as two hemispheres, and people know one side, this kind of very, I guess you could call it very masculine collage style, but also he has he's always been doing these very, very intuitive paintings as well, and we'll see some of those as we go through the slideshow. So he went to 3 art colleges actually, Jamie, one of which, Wimbledon, was funded by the actress Vanessa Redgrave, helped him to go to that college. Jamie's brother Bruce Reid, was very active in the Committee of 100, which was the kind of fairly militant wing of CND. In fact, was involved in the ultra-militant wing of the Committee of 100 that was called Spies for Peace. So there were, very early on, there were tales of daring do around the Reid family kitchen table, and actually Bruce would have been tried for treason if the police had found him at one point for one particular action he was involved in, which was something that Jamie was nearly tried for a little bit later. So, which I think is an extremely impressive pedigree to come from a family where the 2 brothers could have been independently tried for treason. I think is quite fantastic.
Are you going to tell us the lowdown on that later, or is
yes,
something you cannot do?
No, I will tell you a little bit about that later on. So we're actually going to start with a fairly recent image, but this particular picture of sort of détourned picture of John Wayne is from the 90s. Détournement is a concept which was used by a group of French art theorists called the Situationists, who were very influential on Jamie's thinking. They rose to prominence during the riots in Paris in 1968. Jamie and his college friend Malcolm McLaren tried to get to Paris in time for the riots, but arrived too late. Oh well. So they went back to art college, and they fomented dissent within the art college. Staged sit-ins, literally tore down walls within the art college, locked the tutors out, etc. And they had a good time, basically. But they realised that it's possible to take control of things in some way and make some sort of difference, or even make people think a little bit and awaken in some way. Actually, this particular image, which I think we're going to come back to later on, also had its own little part in the Irish peace process, but we're going to come back to that. So I think we're going to move to the first image, and what I'll do is I'll move fairly swiftly through, because there are over 100 pictures, and so we need to move at a fair clip. And I won't talk about everything we're going to see, but if there's anything that tickles anyone's fancy, then do shout, and I'll explain a little bit more if I can about the circumstances which that artwork comes from. So the first image, this one, is actually from Jamie's art college period. This is from 1968, and this is a self-portrait, a portrait of 2 friends. This is Jamie Reid as a late teenager juggling the elements of the universe, and underneath is his college friend Malcolm McLaren. Skyclad, I guess you'd say. I don't know if that's anatomically correct. I'm not sure on that picture of Malcolm, but we can see Malcolm's, what would become his later trademark curly ginger hair. And straight away we have this combination of image, a repetition of image with this drawing on the left-hand side, and text. And the title of this piece is already very poetic, Up They Rise. So you have this kind of piratical element to it. A playground, the idea of play has always been very important to Jamie's work. Right, let's start moving through, shall we? Okay, this collage piece is from 1972. It's very hard to see the detail here, but this is what's called the nice collage. Nice is a very loaded word, isn't it? And Jamie's his first target really was suburbia itself, which, the idea of suburbia is something which was actually not a bad idea. When suburban areas were first laid out, it was a kind of a blessing to have your own house. You weren't stuck in a tenement block, your own half a house and a garden. These are good ideas for everybody, really, but of course I think a lot of us have probably suffered from living in the kind of living tomb that is suburbia. And Jamie particularly felt that. That's where he grew up, in Croydon. And Croydon played quite a large part in Jamie's own political awakening too. This particular piece is now in the collection of the Tate, so I guess we all own a bit of this now, which is nice. Okay. This collage is from a project that Jamie was working on called the Cat Book. Now it's hard to read what's actually. If you can read it, if you go up and read that, that'd be great. And I'll tell you a little bit about this particular. Can you read it? Is it?
Oh, don't worry,
Cecilia.
I'm just pretending it's not there. Funny, I almost like having it around.
Yes.
Referring to the skull. Yes. But darling, what does it mean? Is it anything we've done?
Yes. So this skull has slowly manifested itself in their sitting room, Nigel and Cecilia's sitting room, and it's immovable. They can't do anything about it. So they have just got to come to terms with the fact they have to live with constant death. This is suburban living, as Jamie had seen it at the time. But it was part of a larger project called the Cat Book, which was a kind of picaresque tale about a cat called Poot, who breaks out of suburbia and transforms herself and goes off on a kind of jazz odyssey, which Jamie never finished the Cat Book, but I keep urging him to, and he kind of mutters about doing it one day, but one day perhaps he will. And this is also from the Cat Book. This is The Cat Who Ate the World. And again, lots and lots of minuscule little bits of lettering. If anybody's interested in any of these images, by the way, I can email you the high res if you want to look at these any more closely. Again, quite prescient. And this is, obviously, you can't really see it. Over here, I don't know if Philip, you can take your finger, if you would.
Sorry?
If you can take your finger, if you would, and point it to the right-hand side, the far right-hand side, there's a figure feeding... There we are, feeding...
They grow fat.
Yeah, but he's feeding money into this pig, and then it's coming out the other end, and it's a trough we're all trying to feed from, I guess.
They grow fat while we just shit and eat all our lives.
Yeah.
And then the other chap say, take it,
you messy bastards.
Don't question why, it's the game you were born in.
Right. There we are. So it's a very kind of... It's kind of... Right, yeah? Yeah. So it's pretty appropriate, and nothing's changed, has it? Nothing at all. This figure on the left actually came from a post office savings bank ad campaign, and Jamie used that figure endlessly in the early 70s.
He gives a clue to his ideas. Surely, if we weren't so busy competing in this trough, we could feed ourselves.
Yeah, there we are. Okay. So about this time, this was a time when Malcolm had gone off and he met somebody called Vivienne Westwood, and they started their clothing label together. But Jamie hooked up with some other people and started something called Suburban Press. This was based in Croydon. It was actually a printing press. There were quite a few of these independent press groups around in the late 60s and early 70s, Suburban Press printed things up for Black Panthers and other radical groups, but they also produced their own periodical, which was called Suburban Press. There were 6 issues of Suburban Press, and their principal target was the town planners, really, the town planners and the city council in Croydon, who had knocked down vast swathes of housing in Croydon and put in tower blocks to serve corporations and their own greed, actually, because as the members of Suburban Press found out and publicised, many people in the town council got a great deal of money out of the redevelopment of the city. And actually now, if you go back to Croydon, the areas that were put up in the late 60s, early 70s, the parts of the redevelopment, are now being knocked down, or about to be knocked down and redeveloped again. And the old areas that the redevelopers hadn't managed to get to the first time round is now the heritage quarter.
Yeah.
Okay, now let's move on. Nature still draws a crowd. Yeah.
It's terrifying, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Again, it's quite an accurate pot shot, isn't it?
Yes.
And curiously, this was also almost identically reproduced during the Olympic ceremony. This,
Right.
yeah, with
Yes.
there were trees in the centre of the. In the centre. That's right, the whole thing.
I have that picture at home.
The same one, yeah? The same one. Good. It was reproduced in actually what was essentially issue 7 of Suburban Press. There were 6 issues with text. And issue 7 was a collection of all the images which they'd reproduced or produced for the 6 issues, and put together something called the poster book. And this is a poster from that poster book. It was designed for people's bedroom walls. They also did a lot of stickering. Sticker campaigns were pretty popular at the time. And there's one in the middle of this. My favourite one is sort of centre left, underneath where it says lies, lies. This is a copy of a larger banner visual produced, because those, it says, so this week only, special offer, this store welcomes shoplifters. And this was the kind of thing that Suburban Press and other radical groups at the time were posting in store windows. And they did put this up in Selfridges and various other places. And it's good. The other 2 underneath are very interesting as well. Your bus service and passenger control. These were things that were put up in bus shelters and on the underground. And they took a classic situationist tactic of producing posters that looked official. And in fact, when you start reading them, they read in an official manner, and then it slowly turns. And by the end of the passenger control one, for example, it says, perhaps you can start talking to each other, and then we can take control. Okay.
Same here.
Make trouble.
Yeah. Do we like that?
We love that.
Yeah. Good. Okay. This is a blow up of this. A nice little story about this. The last time this was used was not so long ago, actually. Jamie was asked to do a big opening exhibition in Japan for a department store group called Beams, and they have stores all over Japan, and a lot of art galleries in Japan are actually part of department stores. It's a very strange setup, and Beams had opened this massive new store in Shinjuku, and they were extremely proud, and they asked Jamie to come and do this opening exhibition, which he said, yes, of course, I'll come and do this. But what they weren't told is that this was produced at an enormous size, much bigger than it is here, and put in their front window. And there was this spectacular moment when all the big cheeses of the Beams group came to pay their respects and stood in a big line in front of the window like this to say thank you to Jamie, and they all had to sort of bow down, and that there was blood after that, definitely. People lost more than their fingers, I think. It was quite interesting, but there we are. We enjoyed it. We had fun anyway. Okay, there's that one again. If anybody needs a copy of this, I'd be happy to supply it if they want to do this in their local stores. No problem. This was for a graphic that was produced for the NUM during the miners' strikes of 72. Those strikes in 72 and 74, which I'm sure we all remember. And of course, the government was saying, switch lights off. They were urging us to turn everything out, if you remember, to save save the energy, save the energy supply, which was a strike-breaking motion, of course. So Jamie, being Jamie, etc., he said, "We'll switch something on," and this this sticker campaign was actually paid for under the table by Arthur Scargill himself. Arthur gave the money to Jamie to produce this visual. I think that speaks for itself. Again, a Suburban Press image. So we're getting to about 1974 here. One of the visuals which was produced. Yeah, this visual actually first cropped up in a print job that was commissioned by a radical group in San Francisco called Point Blank, and they wanted to distribute a pamphlet called Space Travel in the UK, and they asked Suburban Press to print it, and so Jamie was responsible for printing this up. And actually, this is a slightly different version of this that appeared on the cover of Space Travel, where the two destinations were they were both nowhere. They were both going nowhere. In an inside version, there was the destination on the left is alienation, and the version on the right is boredom. But as we'll see a little bit later on, this became a very, very well-known image from the punk movement. Okay, this actually whizzes us back to the cat book. This is Cecilia and Nigel's house, and this is a resident of their home, or at least the roof of their home. But in 1975, Jamie decided he wanted to leave Croydon and went off to start crofting on the Isle of Lewis. But while he was there, he received a telegram from his old friend Malcolm McLaren saying, "I've started working with this group, with this band down in the King's Road. Come back, because we need you." And that group was the Sex Pistols. And one of the very early ideas that Jamie started working on for Anarchy in the UK was a version of this Demon on the Roof thing. Now, this particular little drawing is interesting to punk buffs and art historians, I guess, because on the bottom right-hand corner, underneath where it says Sex Pistols, it actually says, it's hard to read it on this particular scan, but it says use ransom note letter, or cut-up newspapers, actually, or lettering from newspapers as per 100 Club. The band had done some gigs at the 100 Club and various other places by then, and they were working on the artwork for the first single, being Anarchy in the UK. Malcolm decided this image was too romantic, so it was ditched in favour of this, which this style, as you know, is so common these days. I tell a little story of not so long ago. I think had to go and get something from our nearest Tesco or something like that, and I live in Brighton, and I was walking there, and I went past. It was Easter, and I walked past the nearest church, and outside in ransom note lettering was, Jesus is risen again or something like that, but all the kind of ransom note lettering. Oh God! And then I went into Tesco's, and they had all this Union Jack bunting, but all the Union Jacks were all distressed as well. So it's become part of our vernacular now, our cultural vernacular. Even though it still has some kind of, it still has an edge. People still use it, but it still has some kind of echo of radicalism.
Wasn't the cut and paste stuff originally from poison pen letters, I think, wasn't it?
Poison pen letters, ransom notes, all sorts of anything to try and hide the identity, blackmail things. Yeah, exactly. Now, some years ago, I was up at Jamie's in Liverpool, and we were rooting through stuff, and he pulled out an envelope, and this little bit of newspaper fell out and plopped on the floor. And I just said to him, "Jamie, is that what I think it is?" And is that the piece of newspaper you used for doing all the photocopying and artwork for the God Save the Queen thing? And yeah, that's it. So it's a funny thing we have in the archive is this little piece of newspaper, which is entirely worthless. Of course, it's just a bit of newspaper, but it's kind of priceless culturally as well, because that's where it all came from, and things like this, which we all know, and.
Is that in the Tate? One of them's in the Tate Modern?
Neither of these. Actually, these two are in an incredible private collection, actually, in Houston, in Texas. But it's fine. They're with a guy who's a very interesting man, actually, who would fit right in here. Actually, it doesn't sound like he would, but he would. And he's a very interesting man, Michael, who's been a great supporter of Jamie for many, many years, and he's made a fortune from very interesting things like wind farms and so on. And he's a very right-on guy. He's very nice. I think you maybe call him a cool cat. I think he's a good guy. He's a really good guy. Michael Zilker, who started a great record label called Z Records in New York in the early 80s. A very influential guy. Very interesting bloke. This was banned, this version, in the UK. It did come out in Spain. Here's those buses again for the single Pretty Vacant.
It's the same buses.
Yeah, it's exactly the same buses. Yeah, it's the same buses. During the recording of this album, the track listing changed a lot, and as you can tell us, when track listings change everything, well, it's important to get the tracks in the right order, isn't it? You know? Yeah. So, but the artwork keeps changing if you do that, so you have to keep doing different versions. So this is original is a collage of the tracks are moving around. This is Jamie at his best, I'd say. This was an installation actually to promote the release of the album, and it's supposed to look like that. It looks pretty good, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It's a good, strong statement.
Yeah.
So this is from Virgin Records on Notting Hill.
Was that the Virgin Megastore?
No, well, this is the store which was on Notting Hill Gate. If you remember that one. This was the little installation for the back cover of Holidays in the Sun. Again, it was all very, when I say sort of kitchen sink and kitchen table, it literally was the kitchen table of Barbara Harwood, who's somebody you never hear about in the history of the Sex Pistols, but she was an old friend of Jamie's, and she was the Pistols driver, and also very active in the day-to-day running of the band, as was another person called Sophie Richmond, who also really keeps her head down. You never hear about these people, but female energy was very strong, actually, in the inner workings of the band. Jamie and the band got sued by the Belgian travel agency for this particular campaign. It's quite a long story, but there was a lot of litigation
around the copyright of the images.
There was, yeah. Alienation. Now, for years, I wondered when I was a kid, I wondered, what does it mean, who killed Bambi? I don't get it. I really don't understand what this means, but actually, Bambi, as Jamie says, Bambi is the innocence in all of us, and that's what it's about. Who killed Bambi? Who killed our innocence? You know.
Was that before?
Don't look at that. That's rude, that one.
Rabbit, do you think?
Sorry?
Was that film Who Killed Roger
Yeah,
Rabbit?
this is quite a long time after. Yeah.
Oh, right.
I'm going to whiz past this next one again because it's only for adults. Okay, ready?
Are there any here?
No.
Of bed linen.
We did make a
Duvets.
yeah, we did make a duvet of this, which is actually in the when we do installations now, we always include the bed, which has people sleep on it sometimes actually, and everyone says, when can I buy a duvet cover that says that on it? But we've never made them.
Didn't Banksy borrow that somehow?
Probably, yeah. Okay, we're moving through. This is actually this has an interesting little story about it too. This image of liberty leading the people by Delacroix in front of the tower blocks of Croydon was something which was produced for the Suburban Press. This particular version was produced for a band that Jamie started working with, that Malcolm was also managing. This is directly after the Pistols had imploded, called Bow Wow Wow. And they released a single called C30, C60, C90 Go, which was really about home taping and about the pleasure of home taping and, you know, making your own mixtapes and passing them around. And of course, at the time, all the record companies were trying to stop it. They were saying, you know, home taping is illegal, don't do it, because they were worried about their profits, of course. And so Jamie produced this image, and to go with the band's single, which really played on the fact that piracy is a good thing in certain circumstances. You should engage in it. But it was used for an ad campaign that Virgin had to pay for themselves. So again, Jamie was getting biting the hand that was feeding him.
They were Adam and Yance,
Yeah,
just with a female singer, weren't they? Wow, wow, wow.
pretty much. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Dave Barbarossa and a couple of others were involved with him. Yeah, that's right.
And so that was the origin of the whole, I mean, the Vivian Westwood sort of...
The pirate thing. Yeah, that is. Jamie and Vivian have quite an interesting background. Actually, it was Jamie that actually encouraged Vivian to use tartan as well in the first place, for example. Okay, so that large, nice collage we looked at a bit earlier on was then Jamie was working on a book with a writer called John Savage in the early 80s about work he'd produced up to that point. It was going to be called Chaos in Cancerland. It's quite hard to read that, but that's the title.
Also, it's a nice book, nice man, nice gesture.
Nice family, nice gesture, yeah, nice everything. Yeah, that's right. Of course, quite clearly fractured. And Chaos in Cancerland. At this point, Jamie started a long and very tumultuous relationship with an actress called Margaret Clark, whose most famous film was Letter to Brezhnev, and Jamie was very involved with that film as well. So we're moving into a period in the mid-80s, early to mid-80s, where they started working on a kind of stage play, which was actually staged once. Sometimes it was called Chaos in Cancerland. It was also called How to Become Invisible, which is quite an interesting title, I'd say. But it was quite tumultuous times for Jamie and Margie. There was a lot of fighting going on. There was a lot of alcohol involved. They skipped London. They'd been living in Brixton and went to live in Paris, where they were so broke. They one thing they did to get money was to go to Polydor Records there and sell the publishing rights to Polydor in France for songs which they claimed they'd written, but they're actually Irish traditional songs. But Polydor in France didn't know any better, and they paid up for it. Yeah, this was done at a time when Jamie was back. Yeah, a brick will do the trick. Looting the loot, a brick will do the trick. This is actually the interior of a Curry's in Brixton, after the Brixton riots. So Jamie was back and forth between Paris and Brixton, and while back in Brixton for a while, he fell in a very minor way with a guy, Andrew, who owned a gallery space under the arches by the railway line in Brixton. And he was asked to do an exhibition there. And so basically he cleared out the contents of whatever was under his bed and went in and stuck it up all over the walls. And this is now what's called the Sex Pistols Collage. And people would come into the venue and tear things off the walls. Jamie would have to go back and replace things. It became quite a hangout for people. And people would stay all day, get drunk, fall over. And but when the show ended, there was a very quick turnaround, 3-day turnaround between exhibitions. This is the kind of thing that happens. Art exhibitions they're supposed to look serene, but there's a lot of chaos going on underneath them, and a lot of fraught energy, particularly between exhibitions. If you've got a very quick turnaround to take the work down, put up new work, it's chaos. But in this particular instance, they were all obviously stuck with the issue of what to do with the walls, because all the work was stuck directly on the walls. So Jamie solved it very quickly by going in and tearing the walls down, much to the consternation of Andrew, whose space it was. And he got a white van which he backed up to the walls of the gallery, threw the walls of the gallery into the back of the van and brought off. But the panels were then, a few years later, were framed up by a couple called Frick and Frack, and included in a travelling exhibition of Situationism, which went to the ICA in London, the ICA in Boston, the Pompidou in Paris. And this particular collage is 7 metres long. It's absolutely enormous, and I have to haul this thing about. And it's gained its own life, and it has its own story, and it's pretty powerful. It has all sorts of original bits and bobs on it, things that you can't get anywhere else. And You know, now in the age of Instagram, people like to have the picture taken in front of it. It's fun. Okay, so I think this is 91. I think this particular image. So we're moving forward, and Jamie is now using this image. See this geometrical image here on the unicorn's neck.
Yeah.
This is an image which we're going to see quite a lot. This is what Jamie refers to as the ova symbol. Punk had been very associated with anarchism. Fair enough, and there's nothing wrong with that. But the concepts of anarchism had obviously been twisted to imply that anarchism just means just destruction, which of course it's not at all. So with a tiny bit of computer jiggery-pokery and the assistance of a guy called Gary Murt, Jamie changed the anarchy symbol into this kind of exploration of sacred geometry and added a V into the O. So you can see that this is a combination of an O for the circular O, the A for anarchy, as the anarchy symbol was an A in a circle, and a V. And there are also 8 points to this particular shape, although the two lateral ones are not so obvious in this particular thing. So this is actually a reference to the eightfold year as well, which Jamie was starting to explore again at this point. At the very bottom right-hand corner, you can see there's a little hand drawn over there, and actually, if Jamie will sign anything for you now, he'll always include that over symbol, and it's ever present. Also, somewhere down there, bottom left, is the hair.
The hair, and
Yep.
also the return of natural magic.
Yeah,
And it's a lovely way of writing magic, so the M almost becomes a heart,
yeah,
which
yeah.
is lovely.
Yeah.
And then top right, you've got, are they astrological symbols?
Yes, they are. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's the astral clock. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, yeah. Now, this hair is actually pilfered. Jamie's used it a lot. This specific hair is actually taken from an artist called Joseph Beuys, a German artist, Joseph Beuys, who Jamie has always claimed a strong affinity with. As a very, very interesting artist, Joseph Beuys. And again, Jamie still uses this hair from time to time. Some people may want to close their eyes for the next image because it is a very
What does the hair symbolise for Jamie?
free thinking.
Wow.
Free thinking, simple as that. Yeah.
What
Ready?
was it for boys?
Ready?
It's the same, actually. Yeah, the same. I mean, there are many, many layers with Beuys. He did a lot of actions with included hair. Well, particularly how to explain painting to a dead hare is a famous action he did, where he painted his face gold and cradled a dead hare and talked to the hare, had a dialogue with the hare. But he's essentially a symbol of free thinking and a free spirit, leaping in forward. Okay, ready? This is the scariest image we have here. Ready? Margaret Thatcher. Yeah, Margaret Thatcher. This was actually done for a campaign for Boy George. Jamie had been given a studio space in Shoreditch on a road called Curtain Road by another graphic designer called Malcolm Garrett, and Malcolm basically the second Malcolm had said to Jamie, just come into our space. We're doing commercial work for record companies and things like that, but just come in and just be a kind of totem for us. Just do your thing. Here's a colour photocopier, and just do what you want to do. And Jamie really pounded that colour photocopier. He found that you could do all sorts of interesting things by using the red and the green, and if you put something through twice and dislocate the image slightly, you get a very interesting shifting effect on the image. And I have some very interesting pieces in the archive, for example, of an artwork Jamie did with Silbury Hill. So you see this progression from the photograph of Silbury Hill to the photocopy, and then the photocopy is put through the machine a number of times, so it starts to degrade, and then he's collaged it, so there's two Silbury Hills, and then there's a stone coming from Avebury goes in front of it, and then the sky goes on it. So you see this lovely progression of artwork. I should include that really in the slideshow, actually, because it's interesting seeing how things move forward. And actually, with that particular image, with that particular thing, it hints at an issue which we quite often have with people who come to look at the archive or are interested in Jamie's work. They say, where's the original of something? Where is the original? And of course, often there isn't an original, because the original the artwork really comes to life when the visual goes out into the world. You know, that's where the work really happens, as opposed to on the paper. Here's Margaret, anyway, and how she ended up. Yeah, the disaster queen. So this was actually done for Boy George for a campaign for a song that George was putting out about the Clause 28 part of the Criminal Justice Bill, which was, if you remember, Clause 28 was prohibiting specifically gay men from meeting in groups and passing personal information to each other. A terribly repressive bill, and one of the first justice campaigns that Jamie was involved in, in a much more national level, and there were quite a number after that. We'll come to those shortly. The next image was something which he produced with Margie, and this itself became a lot of people took offence to this particular image, and I can understand that it might be difficult. There was that Boy George thing. Yeah. Yeah. The swastika.
Yeah, can I ask you that?
Yeah, please do.
What was Jamie's angle on appropriating it, apart from the obvious fascist regime?
Well, that was the start of it, really. That was the start of it. I mean, the royal family's connections with the German royal family are very well known, and that was why he started using it. Really, where he had used it in the God Save the Queen image with the swastikas, two swastikas over the Queen's eyes that we saw earlier on. I would point out that Jamie has no problem personally with Elizabeth Windsor herself. It's more about the symbol of the state. That's what his problems have remained like that to this day. Actually, when Diana died, he was extremely upset. She apparently was a Sex Pistols fan. Yeah. Who knew? But it was the guitar. The swastika is actually, if you can't really see it from here, but it's actually made up of guitar necks, and it was really a dig at the record at Virgin Records principally, actually, at the time. Yeah.
And the Vivienne Westwood famous swastika T-shirts.
Yeah.
Were those Jamie?
No, they weren't. I think actually it was Susie that really started using that first, and that was just an irritation, that really directly designed to upset people, which it did.
Yeah.
Quite reasonably so. I think it's such a loaded symbol and a very difficult symbol for a lot of people to this day. Obviously, even with its association with punk, people still ask about, why did you use that? And it's understandable. It brings up a lot of questions. Here's Margaret again. Yeah, this was done for Red Wedge. If you remember, that was I remember Red Wedge. Good image, that, actually. Very good image. I think, Okay. Pay no poll tax.
Is that just a straight photo?
Yeah, it's a straight photo. It's actually from Trafalgar Square.
Wow.
But he's used it a few times, this particular thing.
What was burning?
I seem to remember it was... it may have been something to do with... I can't remember, actually. No, was it something to do with the South African Embassy on the side there? Ours is the 21st century. Yeah. Now, you can see it's God Save the Royalties. Lawbreaker instead of jawbreakers, isn't there? Isn't it? That's a sweet. Now, Jamie would actually say this is part of his favourite visual campaign for any band. This is actually for a group called Transvision Vamp, who people generally remember as being kind of cheesy. But what are you looking at there, Philip?
I'm
Time.
just checking. No, the battery. Just because I haven't got a lead.
Oh yeah,
That's
yeah,
okay,
yeah.
that's okay. You're all right. You're right.
Okay. I've got a lead if we need one.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is for a group called Transvision Vamp, who were actually much more interesting than given credit for, I think. A reference to Milton. Though I don't think Milton's Avenging Angel ever used a Molotov cocktail. There we are. It's okay. Democracy then lie, it says. Jesus was a black Arab, gypsy, bisexual, socialist shaman educated by Druids and Brahmins. Yeah? Good, right? Always good. Always funny. I love that. There we are. Actually, there's that. This is something that came from that Silbury Hill piece I was talking about earlier on. Yeah, this is actually part of a triptych. This particular. Oh, that's good, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, nice. Would make a very nice print. That. Maybe we should do a fundraising screen print for you.
Yeah, and the other one, the previous one as well.
This one?
Yeah.
Do something with this, yeah.
Yeah. Do something
It'd
with
be
that.
very hard to print now without doing a digital print, and digital prints are not very nice usually, but that would make a very nice plate print.
Yeah.
You could easily turn that into a really nice, very nice, well-inked plate print as well. Yeah. Yeah, do you reckon?
Yeah.
Should we do that?
Yeah.
Yeah? All right. Well, in that case, we bow to the will of the people.
Yeah.
Okay, so Jamie's by this time, which is the mid-90s, Jamie's doing a lot of walking with Maria, his wife now. Well, he still lives in Liverpool. And taking lots of photographs, spending a lot of time in Scotland, around places like Glenlyon. So I don't know if anybody recognise this particular stone. I don't. Jamie could tell us. I can't remember where this one is. It's a good one. That's good, isn't it? Yeah. We do. We quite often do enormous wall collages, and where we print up posters and tear them up into bits and pieces and make big messes of people's walls. And this is a very integral part of the wall collages.
I don't know if you noticed yesterday, coming back from the ceremony at Chalice Well, that symbol seems to be in the concrete of the pavement.
Oh yeah?
Yes.
I didn't spot that.
Yeah.
Really?
Did you notice that?
No, they drew it on when it was wet.
Yes. Yes, somebody's done it on the concrete, on the pavement.
Chalice Well?
Yes, just
Where?
that.
So
You
where
know
will I
when you
find
cross
it?
the road by the roundabout, and then you've got the stretch of 50 yards to get to Chalice Well.
Yeah.
You've got the pavement.
Yeah, it's a raised pavement.
Raised pavement, that's
Yeah.
right. Yes, it's just somewhere along there. Somebody's drawn it in wet concrete.
Is that so?
Set, yeah.
Ah, that's
Yeah.
great. I'll see if I can find it for the
Yeah.
because it was actually actually I'll bring this one up. Actually, this was actually done after this one.
Right.
This is actually 2.5 by 2.5 meter hanging. Jamie's produced a lot of hangings for rituals, and this particular one is called Universal Majesty Verity Love Infinite, which
It comes out of a Druid ceremony and wording probably by MacGregor Reid.
exactly
Yeah.
that's exactly it.
Umvali.
That's
what
right.
it's called.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's
yeah.
right. Yeah, exactly.
Did you have this for the 50th?
Was that
Was
in
this
the
exhibited for
exhibition?
the 50th?
Yeah, I
was
think
a-
so. Yes.
yeah, I think
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
And the gallery.
Yeah, it's actually a beautiful hanging, this
Yes,
one, and
oh,
it's
yeah.
Yeah.
and it's interesting. I mean, from my perspective, it seems to be gaining energy as it ages, and it all spins and rotates and it throbs. It's great. I think this is one of my favourite things in the archive. Actually, the original collage I'm talking about, the original hanging of this,
Yeah.
and it's very, very intricately painted as well. It looks like the background has a lot of very intricate detail in it. It took a lot of time to
It could be a
produce.
photograph looking up into trees behind.
It could be, couldn't it?
You know,
Yeah,
yeah.
right, that's absolutely right. It could be. Yeah, yeah. So there's a lot of different things in there. As you see, there's the CND symbol, the cross of St Andrew, the anarchy in the A at the bottom right-hand corner. All sorts of things going on there. Painted versions. This also is an enormous, nearly 3 by 3 metre hanging. This particular one.
Was he interested in is he interested in mandalas?
Yeah. He would cite John Michel also as maybe his strongest influence.
Yes, because John was painting stuff like that, wasn't he? Towards the end of his life.
Yeah.
They quite remind me of Gurdjieff senagrams as well.
Yeah.
Great.
He also another curious serendipitous connection with other people we are close to us now is that I went to stay with him once. On the bedside table was a book of mandalas by a guy called A.T. Mann. You may know Tad, who came to us via another route. So A.T. Mann or Tad Mann is a friend of ours now as well, and he was painting mandalas and doing a lot of astrological work, and is one of the principal astrologers internationally, I think, isn't he now? He's a very interesting guy. Can you tell us anything about this?
Criminal Justice Act, that was brought in '94 to stop ravers having free parties out in the forests.
Ravers, squatters and repetitive beats and no more than 9 vehicles should assemble.
That's it.
Yeah,
And,
absolutely right.
And of course what it actually did was legitimise raving, and that became the end of illegal raves and the beginning of the super clubs and the appropriation of the high street of rave. A terrible act that's still in force, isn't it?
But it was challenged by Arthur Pendragon, wasn't it?
Oh yeah, all of us, and we had 3 demos in London, and everybody came out, old CND folk, punks, rockers, hippies, people with pushchairs, and it was like the people, we said, okay, you guys, you get on with your big up business and all that, but leave us to ours, but you can't take that away. And later, in a squat, MP, Yorkshire MP came to visit Labour guy, and he said no one in any house, because there's always criminal justice bills where they update the rules according to what's needed, and he said no one in any house had the slightst idea that all these people would rouse up, thousands of them, and march in London, with riot police on horseback. On one of the demos where we started Embankment and up to King's Corner, and Tony Benn was up there giving large and Arthur Scargill, and they had the Tottenham geezers, and Tony Benn was going, never think they will give you your freedom, they won't, you have to take your freedom, giving it all that.
And famously, Spiral Tribe got arrested under that act, and they put on the biggest free festival in Castle Morton, which went on for 10 days. It was very embarrassing to the authorities. I, in my wisdom, signed them to my record label.
Well, you would.
and immediately they said, we want to do this other rave. Can you get Polydor, who we'd sort of done the deal with, to pay for the truck and the sound system? And I was like, sure. And of course, they just did the rave and ran off to Spain with a truck and the sound system. Never saw them again. There's a great documentary on Radio 4 about them, survivors and what they're doing now. It's great.
And of course, that's Boudica.
It is Boudica, yeah, that is Boudica. There she is, rattling shaking her sword at her spear at the Houses of Parliament. She's just right there by the House of Parliament.
Yeah, that's a list of bands, including the All System 7, the Shaman, Drum Club, Luke Guru. All these bands were on Butterfly as well. That was Fraser Clark. Event, wasn't it? And,
that's the Shamaniki and the Boudica.
Yeah, who Jamie worked quite closely
That's
with.
right, that's absolutely right. He was a very interesting guy.
Did an event on Charing Cross Road, which was fantastic, and I think it was with Arthur.
Yeah, we
At
went out
7
on the road and
o'clock,
stopped the traffic.
Stop the traffic on Charing Cross Road. We did a
Do a
circle,
blessing.
and even the police helped stop the cars.
So the
And allowed
armed
us to do this
response
sort of
unit
ceremony
turned up.
for about half an hour. It was Friday afternoon at 6 o'clock. And
It's good. It's really good. Earlier on, I mentioned a studio that Jamie had in Shoreditch on Curtain Road, and one of the guys in that building was a guy called Richard Boot, who started off as a band manager, and then thought, it's so expensive doing demos in other studios, I might as well start my own, install a demo studio myself. And from that little demo studio in that building on Curtain Road, he built what is now, I'm sure you've worked there, right?
yeah, Jamie
Yeah.
did the
He built what's now one of the largest independent recording facilities and post-production facilities in Europe now, I think. And Jamie was downstairs, Richard was upstairs, but they had a flood, and Richard asked Jamie if he would start, thinking about ideas to renovate the space, make it a bit more interesting than a regular recording studio. And to Richard's credit, actually, we still have the original drawings of Jamie's ideas for renovation and installation in the archive. And Jamie presented Richard with the most tripped out ideas you've ever seen. They're just like really mad drawing that makes no sense at all. But Richard just being Richard, just said, "Okay, do it and go for it." And he actually produced some amazing things. And the interior of the strong room is still features all Jamie's painting and screen printing, slate work, woodwork.
The artwork's probably worth more than the mixing does.
Yeah, that's probably true, right? Yeah, that's absolutely right. Yeah, it's kind of amazing in there. Yeah. It took about 10 years of work to do this. Yeah, yeah. It's really, really something. Yeah, it's on the ceiling side. Yeah. A lot of slates, printed screen printed or painted slates from North Wales, Llanberis.
Llanberis?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah. Yeah. And while he was there, he met a guy called Simon Emerson, who was quite a well-known musician who started working with another musician called Barbara Marl, and together, as a group, they started this group Afro-Celt Sound System. And Jamie is a fully paid up member of the band, even though he was the visualizer. And they're on the road again at the moment, Afro-Celt Sound System. He is, yeah.
And they launched their first album with a Druid ceremony.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
What's that? Is that projected onto a stone or?
No, it's digitally
montage.
overlaid. Yeah, it is. The person in the irons, the slavery irons, is a lovely man who's recently died called Keith, who was a very integral part of a group in Liverpool that Jamie got involved with called Visual Stress, and Liverpool, like many of our cities, has a very, very dark underbelly. Liverpool's part of the worst part of Liverpool is the amount of money. It was the money from slavery that built the city. And Keith and a lot of other people who were part of Visual Stress used to do a lot of cleansing rituals, or what they call Vimbuza rituals, around the city to try and clean the city from this dark energy. And they did some pretty amazing work, actually. A lot of parades and other much more private rituals too. Very interesting group. And they were also, when they toured with the Afro-Celt Sound System as well. Yeah.
So a Welsh band, album covers.
Yeah, this is quite a big band, as you can see, and they didn't get the guitars together yet. They didn't have the money for guitars, but they were on their way. Yeah, wonderful. Unraffen are a great band actually, really, really good band. Featuring a guy called Reid, who's an old cohort of Jamie's from North Wales. Yeah, this was actually a commission from the Guardian or the Observer. Yeah. Down the mall. You can see as you can see from this version, everyone gets it here.
What was the story about Jamie being tried for treason? Or?
Well, during the Pistols campaign, there was a move for him to be tried for treason.
It wasn't actually.
They didn't get him in the end because the crown, well, the Queen or the Crown, didn't wish to pursue it.
Right.
In fact, there was never any official statement about any of the
And it was treason in the image, as it were, doing these
exactly.
the images.
Yeah, the imagery itself, defacing the Queen.
Yeah.
It's still supposed to be a treasonable action, but everyone gets it now.
You're defacing the flag and money as well.
The whole lot.
Yeah, it's all treasonable.
Why not just do all of it? Yeah. Lambs, sheep. Why not? Just get on with it.
Yeah. Almost got done the same thing for when they burnt £1 million for defacing the crown.
Yeah.
But they didn't go through.
There was a really great exhibition at the Tate not so long ago called Taking Liberties about art and radicalism, and in that was a fantastic coin. Actually, I can't remember. It wasn't a it was. It is. Yeah, it was a Victorian penny, and someone had stamped the words. Or was it something really funny on it? Something like. Something you wouldn't expect. It was something like "sexy" on the face of her, on her face, and sent it out and just put it back out into the currency, which is something that the suffragettes, as a tactic the suffragettes used a lot as well. You wouldn't imagine that word being used, but
what in the Victorian
time? Yeah, something really like really, but it was used. So I mentioned this and the Irish peace process. Jamie did an exhibition in Derry, which. This particular image was projected across the river there, and it upset a lot of people. But subsequently, the title "Peace is Tough" was used in talks with part of the peace talks in Derry later on, and so he had a small part. He actually helped in some way. This is from North Wales, actually doing a workshop for kids. Jamie's very good with children. He's very good. He does do workshops. Okay, less so now. His energies are a bit on the low side at the moment, but hopefully they'll come back. There's those hangings again.
Wow, where was that?
This was in Liverpool, actually.
Right.
Yeah. This was in Liverpool too, and this was the first time that Jamie had done something with a teepee, and now. We often install teepees now. We had special ones made, and the canvases printed with Jamie's symbols and glyphs and so forth.
Does he know about the Kibbo Kift painted tents?
I don't know.
No, because the Kibbo Kift painted tents as well.
Yeah.
There was an exhibition at the Whitechapel.
There was a book there, wasn't there?
Yes. Have you seen the book?
The book is amazing.
It's an amazing book, isn't it? Yeah. And you see the painted tents.
I couldn't afford the book. It was very expensive, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Oh, we've got it.
We'll show you.
Yeah?
We'll show you.
I'll come round and might be missing from your collection.
Yes, that's right. Steal this book.
That's
put a
right.
sticker on it. Yeah.
Steal this book. Yeah. So we the first time we did something with more than one teepee was an installation of 8 of them actually, where 8 in a circle, and each of the 8 circles is obviously a reference to the eightfold year, but each of the 8 teepees rather has a different interior, and they all refer to different parts of Jamie's artistic career. This is Liverpool. This is down in the Aquarium Gallery in London.
Was that special wallpaper?
Yeah.
Printed?
Yeah. Those are part of the 365 paintings.
And the wall. I remember going to that exhibition,
yeah.
and the wallpaper was incredible. Was the wallpaper ever sort of available as wallpaper?
No, but you can get some if you'd like some, Philip. We can produce it for your toilet if you like some, or something like that. Yeah, we could print some off. Yeah, we could do that. Yeah, those 365. Some of the 365 paintings there actually, which are now on the Eightfold Year website. And as I mentioned,
eightfoldyear.org.
it's eightfoldyear.org. It's worth
Yeah.
having a quick look at some point. And this is, if I can explain what this is a sort of altar space with a book, an open, loose page book, which is called the Eightfold Year Book, and it's a combination of paintings, drawings, photographs, text pieces about the Eightfold Year. It's a beautiful object.
And it was for sale recently.
We did a mini version of it.
Yeah,
yes. Which is extremely beautiful. And Jamie said, take some down and try and sell some. He said,
yes.
But actually, there's such a fiddle to make.
Yeah.
Steve, who makes them, says, I'm never making another one of those things again. I'm never doing it again. So I didn't bring it down because it might... Oh, bugger, sorry. I just kicked over my water. Because it's kind of like waving something at... it's like food to a starving person, because they're really it's a beautiful little object.
Yes.
You can't have it.
Right.
Sorry. Where are we? Yeah. Yeah. So we're heading back into more...
It doesn't have much of a go at America, does it? It's mainly the monarchy and English state.
Well, George Bush is on this one, actually. There's George Bush and Bin Laden at the top, wanted, dead or alive.
Is that Tony Blair? Bottom
yeah,
left?
that is. Yeah, it is. Yeah. No, he doesn't have much of a go at America, actually. No.
Has he been to America?
Yeah, he came to New York for the exhibition there in the mid-90s. That was the only time. Yes, they speak with forked tongues. Yeah. Actually, that trip had a very poignant moment in it. Actually, we were going in a taxi across Midtown, and I said to Jamie, we're going to be going past the Chelsea Hotel, which had been where Sid Vicious and Nancy Spungen had lived there for some time, and that's where Nancy had died, had been murdered, and it had been a cause of a lot of upset and trouble. And Jamie said, I can't go near there, I can't face it, we have to take a detour. So we got the taxi to take quite a hefty detour around the Chelsea Hotel, because he didn't want to go anywhere near it. Yeah. It was still very, very raw, I think. Yeah. We're really over time, I'm afraid.
Are we? Okay.
Yeah.
Where did the Fuck Forever come from?
Where does it come from?
Yeah.
It was something done for the Great Rock and Roll Swindle.
Who came up with the title?
He did.
That's Jamie's.
Yeah. But of course, it has a duality of meaning as well, because it also means, fuck forever. Let's not even worry about that. Let's think about now.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
Let's think about now. Yeah. So there's a spin on that.
All right. Okay.
So this flower offering re-emerged.
God save our yobs.
Yeah, absolutely right. Yeah, our youth. Why not? It's true, right? Stop demonising our future. We're very nearly at the end. A few years ago, Liverpool was the International City of Culture, and as often happens with these situations, a lot of money is put into the City of Culture programme, and international artists are drafted in, and the money that's brought into the city then just is paid to the international artists, and then all the money goes out again. Jamie's living in Liverpool, and he was not asked at all to do anything for the City of Culture, so that was his response. Although it's how things go. He's now been asked to be part of the whole City of Culture next year, so suddenly the City of Culture programme is fantastic. Yeah, that's just a poster from the Eightfold Year exhibition we did with the teepees. Actually, that was the outside of that. It was quite a space.
Does he still do artwork for artists at all?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there it is, going into it. And this is our friend Dennis. Actually, Dennis is Dennis is just actually still at Standing Rock at the moment. He's a Navajo dancer. Does a lot of work in schools, but also dances on stage with Neil Young, which puts him really high up on a pedestal for me. Yeah. And for this particular opening, I didn't tell Jamie that I'd invited Dennis over for the opening. Yeah. So we at the opening evening, Dennis kind of was hiding away and then came out and did this fantastic dance, and Jamie was in tears actually, which was nice to see a man cry, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it was good.
I've heard a rumour that Neil Young owns most of the buffalo in America.
Is that right? I didn't know that.
I've heard that he's got this massive flock of buffalo.
Has he?
I just wonder if the ones that appeared at Standing Rock were Neil Young.
It's a long way away from his place in California, but I don't know. Maybe it may have been. Who knows? Yeah, I like that. That was an amazing bit of film, wasn't it? Them showing up. Sometimes we go back and Jamie revisits things. Funny enough, that the clown face thing was very popular. So this is one of the last things we're going to show here, which was that's actually Dennis again, and this particular collage, albeit with prior to amendments, was produced in the late 90s. A few weeks ago he added "Protect the Sacred" to the top, and that symbol just to the bottom right of the Coca-Cola symbol is the symbol for the company. They're actually principally responsible for trying to shove that pipeline through North Dakota. So this image went out principally mainly through social media, and has been reproduced quite a lot actually and shared from various places. Coming here, which I think was on the front of your. It was on the front of.
I don't know whether he did it for us. I can't remember now. But do you remember when the campaign? Did he do it for us?
Yeah.
Yes. The campaign.
That's
the
right.
government wanted to privatise all the
right.
forests, and so we came up with this idea of doing an album of tracks. We were going to invite artists to do it, sort of pro-tree track, and he did that. And then I remember asking him if we could deface his own picture.
That's right.
And he said yes to Charlie. So Charlie crossed out God in a pink thing and wrote Goddess. So we've got two versions of it. But
good.
Yes, it was great. It was fantastic.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's where we're going to end that. And,
Wonderful. Yeah,
we'll leave it there. Yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you so much.